to Port.
Gary, I've also checked Al Unser Jr. and Arie Luyendyk, and I'll tell you, if Danny Sullivan is low on fuel, these guys are running on fumes only, because there was less fuel showing in the tanks of Al Unser Jr. and Arie Luyendyk than there was in Danny Sullivan. I compared all three of them, and like I said, if Chuck says that they're low, these other guys are really going to be in a crisis come down the last couple of laps. But I think, based on fuel consumption and just kind of peering over people's shoulders and looking at charts, I think everybody's in good shape. They're right on the money. There certainly is no reserve, though.
Well, the teammates, Danny Sullivan and Rick Mears, are running together on the racetrack. Actually, Danny is pulling away now just a little bit. And earlier, there was a near spin involving Rick Mears as he was right in front of Sullivan.
Yeah, he got sideways there coming off and had to get out of it. And, of course, that was a break for Sullivan. Put Mears on the outside of the track, and he let him get by. He might have been trying to move for him anyway, and turning, and the car got a little loose.
Well, you know, in a couple of races here in Indianapolis and Milwaukee, we have seen instances in which there may have been a little bit of team strategy and team orders used. However, the Penske team denies them, but nevertheless, Sullivan, we think, was allowed to get back on the lead lap at Milwaukee, and vice versa at Indianapolis.
Well, Mears was complaining earlier. We had a note that he was complaining of the car being very slippery out there and not getting traction. So, you know, that could be the problem. He tried to make a move to get out of Danny's way, and it didn't work.
Danny Sullivan right on the rear wing of Rocky Moran, driving car number 56. So Rick Mears is a lap down now. You saw Danny pass him and put him a lap down. Rick had just gone back out onto the racetrack after a pit stop. So that means now that there are 5 cars that are on the lead lap. Danny Sullivan, Arie Luyendyk about 7 seconds behind now, and that interval has continued to increase the past few laps. It was 3, then it was 5, then it was 7, and Luyendyk, we understand, has lost 3rd gear out of the racetrack, and that isn't going to be very pleasant news for the Dick Simon team, and perhaps we are seeing Arie Luyendyk's hopes and dreams of winning his first IndyCar race vanish. Larry Newber can perhaps fill us in with more.
Well, standing by with the man who's become very popular in this broadcast, at least familiar. 3rd gear gone, Dick?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, Arie lost it just a couple of laps ago, and he's doing his best to run without it. The thing we're worried about, of course, is those little pieces can get between the other gears and could cause those to go. It's just a hope and a prayer at the moment.
If he goes without 3rd gear, can you assess his chances of catching and staying ahead of Danny Sullivan?
They're not very good. You can't give an inch to anybody here. The competition's tough, and to lose 3rd gear makes it very hard because there are a number of 3rd gear turns here.
Any reaction from the cockpit from Arie?
Yes, he's very disappointed. His chief mechanic, Gilbert Lay, said, "We sorry, Arie, do your best."
Well, Arie Luyendyk was very close to that first win ever. It's not over yet, but it looks like that Lady Luck that Bob, you and Johnny were talking about a little earlier is going to have to smile on Arie to pull this one out.
Yeah, it really does. An unfortunate situation, but it's been a very, very good run, and Arie Luyendyk has nothing to be ashamed of in this Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 that we're covering live for you here on ESPN, and we will be right back. Danny Sullivan has been leading this race since the last series of pit stops when Al Unser Jr. had a poor stop, and in the meantime, Arie Luyendyk has lost 3rd gear in his car, so everything is going well for Danny Sullivan, the Roger Penske team. Question is, does he have enough fuel to go the distance? This has always been a racetrack that has caused some fuel problems for drivers in the past, and it could very well be a problem here this afternoon. Emerson Fittipaldi, we understand, is trying to conserve fuel out there as he has dropped off the pace by about 33 seconds behind the leader. We understand that Emerson is quite concerned about fuel.
It's that time of day when you start looking and you reassess. You've made your pit stops. You know what your fuel consumption is. You sit there and you add it all up and you say, whoa, we've got to take a chance here, or we've got to settle back and make it count. So it'll be interesting to watch the strategies unfold here in the last few laps.
Danny Sullivan has had a very consistent day as far as where he has been positioned on the racetrack. He began on the pole at the end of 25 laps. He was 3rd. 50 laps, he was second, and 75 laps, he had moved back into first position. So he has been a contender all race long, and now finds himself in the lead with his nearest competitor, Arie Luyendyk, having a problem with gears. He has lost third gear in that car. So it would appear as if Danny Sullivan is on his way to victory, but again, don't go away, because fuel could play a very big part in the outcome of this event. For those of you tuning in for SportsCenter, it will be coming right up with Chris and Tim to give you all the results of the U.S. Open and all the other baseball scores and things that have happened in the world of sports today. It'll come up right after our live coverage of this IndyCar race. There is Arie Luyendyk, who is running in second position. There's the leader, Danny Sullivan, as he comes through turns number 2 and 3. And with a 7.19 second advantage on Arie Luyendyk. There it is as far as visual distance. Luyendyk holding on to that second spot, and he has quite a bit of racetrack between himself and third place Emerson Fittipaldi. So it looks good for Luyendyk holding on to that second spot unless he has another problem here in the late going. Sullivan approaching some of the slower traffic now on the racetrack. 92 laps have been completed. We've got 12 more to go in this race. Now Danny Sullivan moves to the inside of the racetrack and passes one of the slower vehicles out there on the track.
He is gaining, by the way, on second place. So he has it all going his way right at this moment. And, of course, he's using fuel. The car's getting lighter. It's a little more responsive, and he's taking advantage of that, and it will be interesting to see if he goes to the end of the race, and the distance certainly looks awfully good for him at this point.
Joni Carter, who uses the computerized video art. We are utilizing it today on our coverage of this race. Danny Sullivan, the leader here at Portland International. So we'll be right back with our live coverage. There are the top 5 at the end of 92 laps. Sullivan in command. Arie Luyendyk 9 seconds behind. Emerson Fittipaldi 38 seconds behind, and Al Unser Jr. is 43 seconds behind. A lap down in 5th position is Mario Andretti. Then 6 through 10, Rick Mears, Teo Fabi, John Jones, Scott Brayton, and Didier Taze. Michael Andretti is running 11th. He's 3 laps down. Bobby Rahal is 12th, and Rocky Moran, Roberto Guerrero, A.J. Foyt, and Howdy Holmes. Well, what do you think here? Can Danny Sullivan finish this race without a fuel? Well, there's no need to make a fuel stop. They have got all the fuel in the car that they can probably have, but can he win the race? That's a question we're going to answer in a few laps. This is Teo Fabi, and our hats off to the Quaker State Porsche team. I believe they're beginning to make their mark, Johnny.
Yes, they're starting to show signs. They've run all day today. They've been a factor early in the race. They were up front. So I think it's time. They're learning the business, as it were, and Teo is to be commended. He's been out running a good competitive race, holding his own, staying right in there. Of course, we're wondering if Sullivan can go the distance. There in the cockpit, you have chores that you start doing under these set of circumstances. You start short-shifting the car, not running up the RPM so that you use a lot of fuel. You start maybe coasting a little bit more, watching the deficit between you and second place, and so it's time for that to start happening, and that may come into play and have a factor on Sullivan being able to go the distance and winning the race.
Teo Fabi once again being shown in that 7th position in the March Porsche engine. He is 2 laps down to the leader. Right ahead of him there is Al Unser Jr., who is in 4th as he comes through the chicane. And right ahead of him is John Jones in car number 12, who's running an 8th spot. And should he finish an 8th spot, that would be his best career finish. John Jones, driver of car number 12, the one right ahead of Al Unser Jr. here is where inside.